A question asked many times in games like TF2 is which items or weapons are the best? And there are a whole lot of different ways you can answer this question, whether it's reviewing how impactful its buffed and debuffed stats are, or comparing it to the likes of other similar weapons. Or you could do something really silly, like pitting each of the weapons against each other in competitive elimination-based rounds to create a TF2 weapon bracket tournament, which is just a ridiculous way to measure in-game weapon strengths. And that is why people in the TF2 community just don't do things like that. Oh, there's no way we actually did. Now, the only way I was able to fairly organize all of this was by following a very specific set of rules. Number 1, any weapon that can damage enemies or add supportive buffs related to damaging enemies were placed in random matchups against another weapon. Number 2, I would have a certain amount of time to get as many kills and least deaths as possible with each of the competing weapons, and while I still can use other tools like the rocket launchers to rocket jump, or the PDA to make sure I'm not being completely useless, only kills with the weapon I'm meant to be using will count towards its score. Number 3, the weapon with the most kills or the same amount of kills with least deaths will be the winner of the selected matchup. And finally, number 4, every game throughout the entirety of the tournament would all be hosted on the map Harvest. Feel free to take your pick on what TF2 weapon you think is going to make it far in this tournament, and let me know in the comments below, because I am very fascinated to see what weapons happen to be the favorites. So let's begin with the matchups from round 1. Although the first round is the most broadened of the tournament with 138 unique weapons present, it was also one of the more important rounds, with it skimming out a ton of bad or unfit contenders, like the Short Circuit losing to the Equalizer, the Cabra losing to the Degreaser, or one of the most staggering examples between the Fan-O-War and the Lock and Load. The Fan-O-War, however, unlike the previous mentions, actually put up a pretty decent fight, taking out very low health soldiers and bullying snipers, even though a swing from this thing deals a whole 9 damage. But unsurprisingly, the Lock and Load still absolutely decimates it, going 17 and 4, and I would say I gathered some of my favorite clips using this weapon. Like this clip where I nearly lose this easy 1v1 from my shaky aim, which actually benefits me, because the grenade I totally intentionally lobbed out the window managed to hit someone capping the point. So for those of you who want to pick me up for your competitive roster, I play Spy and Rancho Relaxo Engineer, so just let me know. There are other examples of expectedly bad weapons being skimmed out. This includes all of the shield weapons, and I can pretty easily show you why each of them struggled. Killing with just the shields requires you to basically put yourself in a perfect scenario, where you can charge across the map into an enemy and do just enough damage to finish them off. The only moment I even came close to getting a kill was trying to help out this engineer, only to find out the Spy seconds later had the dead ringer, meaning the kill didn't even count. Moving on through the list, there's also the Backburner against the Warrior Spirit, which was also completely one-sided, since with the Backburner I basically just went boom, 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 boom. But then there's the pistol, which is usually known as a sidearm that's best for finishing off low health enemies, and it unexpectedly earned 8 kills. But this was mainly due to the fact that pretty much every engagement this weapon was in was against someone who was 1 hit away from death. Like, what, are we running out of health packs or something? Hey, don't look at that! What about the Solemn Vow, which I at first thought had some real potential to make it far from how amazing it was to read the amount of health the enemies I considered going after had, and the 4 kills I gathered within the first 30 seconds of the round, but it's going against the minigun, so it took the lead pretty quickly. Some of you might be wondering why I allowed reskins like the Rainblower to be part of the tournament, and to that I say, well, statistically speaking, the Rainblower, despite it meant to be a colorful flowery reskin of the stock flamethrower, technically contains the characteristic of being its own unique weapon, due to its unwritten stat of having its own taunt kill, essentially meaning that I'm correct, and anyone who disagrees could also be correct, because there shouldn't have to be any heated debate about a weapon that looks like the final boss version of a tool. Anyways, the Rainblower, as expected, blew the Buffalo Steak Sandwich out of the competition. Sandman vs. Machina, this should also be a sweep. I mean, I have absolutely no hope for the Sandman going into this, but then this happened. How does this useless thing go 11 and 3? The Eviction Notice versus the Panic Attack is a very good example of how quickly some of these matches ended, with me struggling to pick up more than 2 kills with the Eviction Notice throughout the entire round. And then the second I walk out of spawn right after switching to the Panic Attack, yeah, there's that. Another matchup that displayed a good example of something was between this set of melee weapons that truly showed how much everyone's favorite skill-based mechanic changed the tide of some matchups. The Sharpened Volcano Fragment, despite it not being the strongest weapon and also needing like a 4 less syllable shorter name, had every right to win even with its low amount of kills, because the only reason the bottle made it on top was that I kept making crazy questionable plays that definitely should have led to my demise, but you probably get the gist. Next is the Fist of Steel versus the Holiday Punch, a fight to the death that no heavy main wants to see. The Fist of Steel was a menace in its run, by forcing each enemy into a stalemate of either choosing to have all their damage be tanked by the weapon's resistances, or willingly put themselves in heavy's melee range. The Holiday Punch had to use a more tactical approach by baiting people in for taunt kills, though even with the impressive amount of taunt kills I managed to hit, the Fist of Steel ended up beating the Fist of Funny anyways. Now this matchup was between two real heavy hitters. The big earner with adding potential of easier and quicker chain stabs, which is really good to build a better outcome for a tournament like this, and the Grenade Launcher, a very powerful explosive weapon from its 100 direct damage output, devastating in the right hands, which are very clearly not mine. But even through my shortcomings, the fight between these two weapons was closer than any of the ones in the tournament up to this point, with the one real distinction between them is Spy's affinity to dying a lot. Bringing us to the last matchup of round 1, the original and the candy cane. Now why is another reskin like the original allowed to be in this tournament, you might ask? Well, somehow this matchup was also really close, with the original finishing at 10 very simple kills and 5 deaths, while the candy cane brought it down to one final play. This enemy scout was its 10th kill. It needed one more in order to qualify, which judging by the time and the health that I had at this point, it would only win if I random crit this spy. So did I? Nope, I didn't even swing. With the introductory round completed, the weapons remaining in the tournament were cut in half. In round 1, the top killing weapons included the back burner at 14 kills, the black box at 15, and the Huolong heater at 22, while the top deaths went to the Thompson at 9, the airstrike at 10, and the caber at 11. I would like to say the second round was when things really started to pick up and become competitive, but it'd be the equivalent of trying to convince you that 2 Fort is a serious map. The vast majority of second round games ended in complete landslide victories, like the Loose Cannon and the Sandman. The Loose Cannon didn't really have much competition up to this point after beating the Fire Axe in the first round, so the Sandman initially was looking to be another mediocre weapon it could beat easily. But since I absolutely suck at using the Loose Cannon, within the first 25 seconds, we see that the Sandman once again comes out on top in a matchup that in theory it should not have won. But did the other and arguably better scout melee weapon have any luck? Nope, it was also blown out of the water. Mainly because the population of snipers on Harvest decided to quadruple this game, leading to the minigun matching it before the control point was even unlocked. The Babyface's blaster, on the other hand, was able to use its speed to swiftly earn 10 kills against the Extinguisher, where all I got was this disgustingly sloppy double kill and a t-shirt telling me to never play Pyro again. There's the Liberty Launcher and Rocket Launcher, which on paper sounds like it would be a deceivingly close call, but ended in a very surprising upset, though it was more of a situation difference rather than the Liberty Launcher actually proving to be a stronger weapon, since the Liberty Launcher's round was balanced enough to give the weapon some opportunities to earn kills, while the Rocket Launcher's round was basically a moment for my team and I to become well acquainted with our spawn room. I mean, just look at how many weapons, regardless of strength, were just dismantled in the second round. Namely, the back burner not even coming close to the flamethrower, even though they're both basically the same weapon. By the end of the round, there were only 2 matchups that were actually close though. The first of which started with the Cow Mangler, dealing damage safely from the map's many rooftops, making it much easier for earning kills consistently without having to do any trading. No, not that kind of trading, resulting in waves of multiple kills and the horrors of witnessing fellow war generals having their last laugh. The shotgun on the other side of things had to rely on taking advantage of natural cover with its close range nature, and although it was gaining kills at roughly the same pace its competition did, the harsh truth of the matter was that enemies were not always going to be fighting alone in favor of one-on-one shotgun engagements, making the Cow Mangler advance as it achieved the same amount of kills in less deaths. The Brass Beast had no trouble creating pressure in the middle point, making for most of its kills coming from roaming classes trying to capture it. And Electron-J, despite its natural damage penalty, went on a fluke run, like fighting this soldier where I launched up into the air and somehow landed on the lip of a rooftop preventing me from falling to death, or from marginally doing the last 40 damage from an enemy that was about to burn to death or be backstabbed. And while it would have been pretty funny to see such a strange run see success, the Brass Beast was the one to move on. The top killing weapons this round include the Liberty Launcher at 12 kills, the Cow Mangler and Shotgun's fierce competition putting them both at 14 kills, and the Shortstop at 17, while top deaths go to these 2 pistols at 6 deaths, the Market Gardener at 7, and the Conniver's Kunai at 8. With the third round underway, it might be finally time to feature a weapon that in secrecy has been on a pretty insane run. This being the soda popper. Sure, the weapons it's been compared to so far aren't exactly that, compelling, but I quickly realized how well the openness and easy high ground axis of Harvest would play into the weapon's stats. So to put it simply, this thing wasn't about to lose to a weapon that's literally just Heavy's meaty hands. And even after some comeback plays, it was hardly enough, while the soda popper finished with yet another impressive result, only dying once. The round 3 matchups were actually much closer this time, with some of them coming to just bare differences. Except for the Sandman against the Medic. But Medic still had one more chance, where it was the only weapon left in the tournament that needed to farm assists instead of kills, and where the first Crits Krieg Uber push did wonders, snuffing out an opposing Heavy Medic combo. Now, how did the Sticky Bomb Launcher compare? Well, most of the time using this weapon consisted of me just spamming sticky traps, but with 19 seconds left and still needing 3 kills to match, I started spamming and managed to kill this soldier, watched the Scottman Skullcutter not random crit for the first time in history, and with 5 seconds left, the kill on this sniper brought the Sticky Bomb Launcher to the finish line. The black box had been on quite the decline since its debut, and it especially started to show in this game, with how easy it was to be overrun when my only source of damage was a smaller clip size primary, and also because I don't look up. But a rocket launcher only earning 5 kills would leave Don't be spies, hold on. But a rocket launcher only earning 5 kills would leave a massive opening for the Wrangler to take advantage of. While building my sentry, 3 enemies quickly flooded in, and with the help of this pyro, it was a huge opportunity to bring the Wrangler to its required number of kills. Even though the Liberty launcher really isn't that good compared to most rocket launchers, this thing was actually starting to grow on me a bit, probably because having more ammo to work with rather than less was a really welcome change of pace. But with the degreaser being the backburner's distant cousin, well, here we go again. Yeah, it's gonna be tough for something to beat this. The round concluded with these 3 absolute murder scenes in the end, especially this one. Trust me, you don't want to see this one. And with round 3 covered, the highest kills were the Eureternal Reward and Liberty Launcher at 12, the 2 WM1 machines at 13, and the Knife at 14, with highest deaths being the Wrench and Wrangler at 7, the Medigun at 8, and the Sandman at 9, which is crazy because it's still qualified. And you want to know something else that's crazy? Demo Man's entire stock loadout is all still here, so take that as you will. The 4th round starts as the beginning to all the high-intensity matchups that come from these 17 weapons, starting with the Soda Popper against the Lock and Load. Now, I had pretty high hopes for the Lock and Load because of how fascinatingly close most of its matchups have been, but this matchup instead, oof. This is why the Soda Popper is one of the most dangerous weapons in this tournament. Everything up to this point was a warm-up for the thing. After that, I was much less invested in these next weapons themselves, and more of which of these would be forced to take on the monster that's the Soda Popper in the 5th round. The Wrangler started with its signature opening of building a sentry on our stairs, which is basically its happy place. But besides being able to upgrade my sentry for like the 2nd time in the entire tournament, everything the Sticky Bomb Launcher was able to accomplish was just far too much for the Wrangler to handle. Alright, surely the Sandman gets eliminated here. I mean, the Knife has a really good record, beating many weapons way stronger than it. And sure, it only finished this round with 7 kills, but I mean, come on, I think it's finally time for the Sandman to be put in its place. I think I need to just stop doubting this thing. At least the bottle finally faced reality that random crits wasn't going to take it all the way, with many of its risky plays being swiftly snuffed out. And to make things worse, would you look at what weapon is back? Here we go again. No, we are not doing that again. Anyways, let's see how the grenade launcher's doing. And well, would you look at that? It's doing well too, especially with how widely spy-infested this lobby seemed to be. But then we decided to join in when using the Eureternal Reward, which had very good sustainability as the constant stream of disguises led to it only dying once, but the issue laid in how uncommon the opportunity to backstab came to be. Mainly because my team was doing a bit too well at keeping the enemies back. Truly the definition of suffering from success. And with the rest of the shorter round flying by, these, according to the tournament, are the top 8 best weapons in TF2. What better matchup to start the 5th round than the Soda Popper against the Sticky Bomb Launcher? The Soda Popper, for the first time in the tournament, started actually struggling at first. Obviously, though, after building up my hype meter, this did not last, with the power of a million jumps and TF2 players never looking up, bringing the Soda Popper right back to its normal speed. Then the Sticky Bomb Launcher worked solidly at denying enemies from the control point for a while, but this was not enough, so I started being much more aggressive, killing the scout just outside their spawn, and nearly nearly finishing off this pyro as well before my teammate got the last hit on him, which unfortunately closed out the sticky bomb launcher's last opportunity. Now this was going to be the Sandman's hardest matchup by far, and while it has already proven how clearly capable it is, I was still very skeptical of it. A lot of its early kills came by easy, but Scout's lower health pool using this weapon made me victim to being one-shot by Huntsman arrows or medics who are much better than me. And after some last funny random crits, it was the minigun's turn. The minigun, as you can see, is just farming with very little trouble of sustainability compared to the Sandman. But here's the problem. All of my contributions to those fights were assists, not kills. My team was doing extremely well, causing the minigun to have very few moments to shine for itself, which, as shocking as it might be, even with this quadruple kill near the end of the round, Heavy's slowness to catch up with the rest of his team ends up being his downfall. The next matchup was much more straightforward, with the Panic Attack having some decent exchanges by catching enemies in the interior areas of the map, or drawing them into close range fights, putting it at 9 kills with only 1 death. But the Degreaser is just such a prominent weapon, with the strategy of holding down left click and walking at people working time and time again, leading to multiple high kill streaks. But does the questionable side grade deserve top 4? Well, for the first nearly 2 minutes, it had no kills because the enemy pyros were just not having it. And while it did have its moments spamming down the control point near the end, it was just not enough to match the grenade launcher's consistency. In just 3 more matchups, one of these weapons will be the tournament winner, starting with a fight between both of Scout's remaining side grades. The Soda Popper began with one of the most insane starts to a matchup that I've seen so far, going on an unstoppable killing spree, earning 7 kills in a span of 40 seconds. That's like roughly 1 kill every 5 seconds. This caused some real danger for the Sandman. The random crits were not hitting nearly as much as they used to, so after only 3 kills and double the deaths, the Sandman, after all of its accomplishments, was finally eliminated from this tournament. I knew it was a bad weapon. The Sandman, however, wasn't the only weapon this round finally showing some weakness, with the Degreaser's relentlessly running at them strategy becoming way less usable, with everyone doing well at steering clear from the flames. And although I was expecting the Degreaser to do better, it is pretty important to keep in mind that there is a lot of range sources of damage in this game, which is why I was also expecting that the grenade launcher was going to win out in the end, which it did without requiring much effort. Here we are, the moment you've all been waiting for. To those of you who have actually been watching everything up to this point, you are awesome. Sweet. Now, without further delay, this is the final. The Soda Popper actually had a pretty rough start, with my horrendous aim leading to 2 deaths in quick succession, but it wasn't all down and out, as it started to look just as good as always around the 2nd minute. But is only a minute of solid gameplay and 4 kills enough to beat the most consistent weapon in this tournament? Well, the grenade launcher spent a lot of its initial time spamming grenades from a distance at soldiers, reaching half the kills it needed already, but also leading to a few freak accidents. Some moments after, I managed to hit the tip of a fellow demo man's toenail, bringing it to only needing 1 more kill. And just as my team and I finally decided to capture the point after we'd been running around aimlessly for 2 minutes, the grenade launcher, with hardly any trouble, destroys the expectation, meaning the winner of the TF2 weapon bracket tournament is the grenade launcher, making it the statistical and indisputable best weapon in the entire game, except for that I still think the sticky bomb launcher is better. But did you predict the grenade launcher winning? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. But also be sure to let me know what you thought about this video, and if you want to see more stuff like this, as feedback is one of the best ways to support the channel. A huge thank you to all of you who have stuck with me while making this insane video, and to those of you who might be tuning here for the first time. I really do appreciate all of you, and I will see you all in the next silly little video I make. Bye-bye.